Okay, hello there. Welcome to the fourth edition of these revision videos. And today we're going to be looking at rhythm and meter. We're going to revise over the poems we've looked at already, and we're going to end by looking at Pie Beauty by Gerard Manley Hopkins. So your objective for today is all about identifying how a poem sounds. By the end of this, hopefully you can do that. I've got two objectives for today. After reviewing my third video, firstly I'm going to try to sound a little bit more cheerful, because I think I sound a little bit dead at times in the last one. And my second objective is to try and not go as much as I did before. If you look back at that video, you can probably listen. I begin a load of sentences with this sound, and I'm going to try and not do that. So, I've got two words for you to begin with. Offer and prefer. And you need to separate them. And the clue here is stress. No, not that kind of stress. Not even a lack of stress. These words both have stress in them, but in different ways. And now I'm not talking about their origin. One's Anglo-Saxon, one is French. One is more of a giving nature and generosity, and one is about having your own personal opinions and maybe being selfish. I'm talking about the way they sound, without any meaning behind it whatsoever. So, they both have two syllables. Offer, prefer. And we can then break those down and think about one syllable in each of them is stressed, and one syllable is unstressed. So, looking at the two for a second, say them out loud. Go on, I dare you to. Sound stupid to the person next to you. Say it out loud. Well, you didn't do it, did you? But we can see offer, offer. The stress is on the first part. Prefer, prefer. The stress is on the second part. If you don't believe me, say them with the stress on the second part or the first part. Switch them around. No, you didn't do it again, did you? Offer, prefer. Doesn't make sense, does it? Offer, prefer. And the key here is that relaxed vowel sound, which we have in our language, and it's the sound you make when you're a little bit confused or you're not sure what you're about to say. The sound I was making in the last video, that sound. So, offer, prefer. Oh my god, I messed them up there. Okay, so dum-dee, offer, prefer, dee-dum. So those are the two. Now I'm going to give you a list of words here, and I'm going to copy them over, because I didn't know why. But let's first look at my name. Edward. Edward. It's on the first part. It's not Edward, it's Edward. And then my surname, which gives a little bit of confusion. It depends on where I am in the world and how it's pronounced. In England, the United States, and how I normally pronounce it is Moran. The second syllable is much more pronounced than the first. But if I'm in Ireland, it's not pronounced that way. It's pronounced Moran, where the first syllable is much more emphasised. Now, seeing as I've never worked as a teacher in Ireland, making my name sound even more like the word moron has never been a good idea. So I normally say Moran, but if I'm around certain members of my family, I'll get some dirty looks if I say Moran. I should say Moran. So here's your list of words I copied for no reason. With these words, just have a quick read through and think about where the stressed syllables are and where the unstressed ones are. Where's the D's and where's the dums? I'll give you a minute. Well, no, I'll give you less than that. Okay, you're probably not saying them out loud again because you're not really playing my game, are you? But looking at the first word, asleep, sleep, sleep. So that sound coming through again. Dee-dum. Travel, travel. So they're on the first part. Demean, demean. Second. Danger, danger. Hope you're starting to hear these yourself. Table, again the same. Excellent. So now we've got more syllables. Excellent. You don't say excellent or excellent. Observer, observer. And lastly, project or project. If we can see here that use of stress actually indicates a different meaning for this word. We can use it to say that I'm working on my project, or my project is to project my voice more. Okay, so I am, demean, dee-dum. I am is the term we use for this. If it is a dee-dum line, we say it's iambic. And then we have the dum-dees, like table. It's a trochee. So you can see the words themselves are dee-dum and dum-dee. I am, trochee. And these are the two different measurements. So let's look at iambic first. Imagine you're a music teacher, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The ands are not emphasised. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we can see that in some famous lines from poetry. We've got Hamlet's soliloquy, to be or not to be. The emphasis, when read correctly by a Shakespearean actor, is on the second syllable every time. Be, not be. So when read properly, much better than I've done for you, I apologise, you can hear the message of what he's contemplating, existing, not existing, as the emphasised words. Then we have a more playful one from W.H. Auden, who's also the author of Funeral Blues, the famous poem read out in 4 weddings and a funeral, stop all the clocks and all that. And death is better, as the millions know, than dandruff, night starvation or B.O. With this type of reading out, please don't think you're always going to read like this, but sometimes it helps you to try and find that rhythm in a poem and find that meter. And we've got last one there, Elegy in a Courtyard from Samuel Gray, which you can read to yourself if you wish to. And then we go on to trochaic. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The emphasis is on the first syllable. And this is a much more striking way of speaking. Our iambic that we had before is a more natural way. This is a much more impacting way of speaking. And so we have it mentioned with the witches from Macbeth. Double, double, toil and trouble. These women are very shocking, very scary for the contemporary audience of Shakespeare's time, so the way that they speak was very impacting as well. We can also see that in William Blake's poem, Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night. So you can see that with trochaic, it can often be a lot more memorable and it often sticks in your head a bit more. But we don't always talk like that because it makes you sound a prat or something like that. It's not as natural, but it does have an impact. So let's look back through some of the poems that we've had so far. Oh wait a minute, before we do, I forgot this slide. Some issues. I've got 3 words here. Now, depending on where you're from in the world and the upbringing you had, you may say them differently. You may say mandatory, primarily, incomparable. Now, a traditional British accent for these would say mandatory, primarily, and incomparable. So we're doing the IGCSE, the International GCSE. And that means that it's an exam open to English speakers all over the world, funnily enough, internationally. And people don't all speak with the same accents. So there is a lot of interpretation that goes on. There's lots of variation. And therefore, don't think that this is an exact science, but it's something that we can pick out in certain examples. And if you want to talk about it in the poems, you can argue your case. Okay, so looking now, Westminster Bridge. Now, ignore the bits I've underlined. That's a stupid thing to say, really. You're looking at them now, aren't you? But if you look to the 3rd and 4th line, a sight so touching in its majesty, the city now doth like a garment wear. This is didum, this is iambic. A sight so touching in its majesty. Learn to speak, Wordsworth. The city now doth like a garment wear. Again, didum, 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 didum. The didums are more upbeat and more natural. But we start with earth has, which is actually dum dum. Not anything to show more fair, reverts to iambic. Dull wood. Now that could be trochaic or it could be dum dum again. And the name for that technique is caesura, which means a kind of impacting double emphasis, which really does grab our attention. Why has he done that here? Well, because he's saying something very unusual. He's saying that the most beautiful sight in the world is London, the smoky, fog-ridden, smog-ridden Tianjin of the 19th century. And he's claiming that it's beautiful. So he started with a dum-dum to grab your attention and go, wait a minute, look what I'm doing here, this is crazy. And then if we look to the sestet, the conclusion of the poem, he does a similar thing again. Never did sun more beautifully sleep. It has a trochaic rhythm again. A little bit confused, so you could argue that it then moves towards iambic, but it definitely starts trochaic, which again emphasises he's making a bold statement in his conclusion. Okay, next up. This poem we haven't looked at yet, but it's The Cockroach by Kevin Halligan. It's in the collection. I watched a giant cockroach start to pace, skirting a ball of dust that rode the floor. It's iambic. It's a Shakespearean sonnet, another form of sonnet, slightly different to what Wordsworth wrote in, but we'll be looking at that later, but just to show you a very clear example of iambic. And then we get to a different history. Great Pan is not dead. Great Pan is not dead. I ain't finding no rhythm there, are you? It's just dum, 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 dum. Actually reminds me of when I was about 6 years old and I had to stay at my crazy auntie's house, a mad old Irish woman, and I was caught nicking biscuits from the cupboard and I got a smack on the backside, and for every smack there was a syllable. Don't do that again or you will. You get the idea. And that's kind of what she's doing here. It's like a slap in the face with every word. it's a bold statement to start with again, and so she's trying to emphasise that with the use of syllables. Please don't worry, I'm not an abused child, and I turned out perfectly fine. And then the lines change. He simply emigrated to India. Here the gods roam freely, disguised as snakes or monkeys. This poem is not about having rhythm, about having a strict structure. It's free verse. The message is much more important than what is going on in the structural side of things. Okay, so with that, you listen and you look for that importance of message. So, Continuum by Alan Kernow. The moon rolls over the roof and full up. Kernow, you satirist, making fun of it all over again. He starts with an attempt at iambic pentameter, but then he falls out of it. And there's two reasons for that. One is he's, in this poem, he can't sleep, he's an insomniac. How's he supposed to write in rhythm? He has no natural rhythm of sleep himself. And also, he's satirising. Why should it have rhythm? It's a poem. Does it have to have rhythm? What is a poem? Why does that have to be one of the parameters? Free verse again. And don't forget that 11-11-8 scheme. Now, reviewing this in video format, after taking all the time to go through and record it, I've noticed that I've put the wrong title here. Alan Kernow. It's not. It's Gerard Manley Hopkins that wrote Pied Beauty. Sorry about that. Okay, sprung verse is the meter, the rhythm being used here. And that means it's varied and it resembles natural speech. And we can see that in the words that he uses. Couple colour. Dum, dee-dee-dee. Stressed, three unstressed. And all trades. Accents on the A's to say we need to stress this syllable. And we've got the word brinded, where actually it should be brindled, which would change the pronunciation. Brinded, brindled would change the emphasis and stress that second syllable more. Now, he claims this is a type of rhythm that he created himself, and I've got a few issues with it, and I'm not sure if it's 100% accurate, but that's something we're going to look at in a second. If you look through the poem, you can see, and if you look up the words that are there, there's some that you should really do you a favour to look at in a dictionary. It all comes down to pied, dappled, brinded, freckled, being patchy, having different patterns, having different images together, and that's beautiful. You see in the finch's wing, I don't know why I had to point at the finch's wing there, it's obviously that one, but we can see different textures and patterns and colours. Looking at the brinded cow, you can guess which one that is. You can see the different colours again, and that's just wonderful. Looking at our fish with rose moles all coloured in stipple. Again, random patterns which actually are beautiful. And the final one we have is the fresh fire coals, so you can see them glowing very brightly, fading into black on the sides that are new to the fire and need to be burned more. And other aspects of this poem, we can have the farmer's fields with all different crops in them, showing different patterns and different colours. And again, he's saying that's beautiful. And so this poem is a hymn in a way. We've got Gerard Manley Hopkins, or rather Reverend Father Gerard Manley Hopkins. He was a poet and a Roman Catholic convert and a Jesuit priest. So quite a devout Christian. The Jesuits are known for their self-sacrifice, often involved in education, religious education. And the current Pope of the Catholic Church is a Jesuit. And he's drawn quite a lot of attention for not lauding it up in the way that previous popes have. He's a lot more humble, and he doesn't accept the kind of pomp and ceremony that others have taken in the past. So yeah, this poem is a hymn in a way. Glory to be to God is our opening, and it ends with praise him. So you can imagine it's possible that he put this poem to music itself as well, to be sang within his own congregation. And we have in the middle, who knows how? And I think the answer there is God knows how. He's thinking that everything in the world is random and there's completely different patterns and appearances to everything. But that's not unintentional. Everything's different because the Lord intended it that way. And so that's the lovely message for the IGCSE poems. We're all very different, but that's just wonderful. Looking back to the idea of sprung verse, we could draw a comparison here though. He is the demiurge, as mentioned in Continuum. He is the guy that is creating this universe. And in his own creation, in his own universe, the rhythm is random and unusual and doesn't seem to have an order. But that's how he intended it. Or at least that's his argument. I don't really believe him. I think he just couldn't do rhythm that well. But in the exam, if this comes up, you say, The rhythm of sprung verse used by Manley Hopkins supports the idea of the random images that are created throughout the poem. And that's really all you can say. As a last point on this poem, to make a poem like that you really do need to have Manley as your middle name, because I don't think you get away with it otherwise. Thanks for watching, see you again soon, bye bye.